investigative reporter Kathy Curran looks into apparent waste at an agency lacking oversight.
Environmental police officer Pat Robert loads up a handful of fishing poles and is finally ready to respond for duty after staying at home on the clock for the first 6 hours of his shift. It's a troubling pattern 5 Investigates discovered in our undercover investigation. Some environmental cops at home on the taxpayer's dime, their take-home state trucks parked outside. This person whose identity we're protecting is familiar with how the department works.
There's no accountability, there's no supervision whatsoever.
The mission of the environmental police is to protect the environment and natural resources. They enforce fishing, boating, and hunting laws and relocate wayward animals. But we found Pat Robert at home for hours at a time on multiple days while on duty. Our cameras also caught him driving well over the speed limit when there was no emergency at all. His destination, Boston Harbor, where he just sat in his truck. Then he took a stroll around the north end and eventually landed at headquarters. Other officers, including Eamon Mullally and Brian St. Pierre, were also at home during several shifts for an hour or more instead of out on patrol.
That's a complete absence of any kind of management oversight.
Tom Nolan is a criminal justice expert and former Boston police lieutenant.
These are, well compensated people who are in a position of a lot of responsibility, and they bear the public trust ultimately. And this is violative of the public trust.
Our investigation also found this perk. Environmental cops are paid time and a half by another state agency to work details patrolling state pools and parks like this. They're even allowed to split their shifts to pick up those details in the middle. Here, environmental police officer Ian Haskins enjoys an ice cream poolside. He's just one of the many officers laughing all the way to the bank, taking advantage of that detail perk. Some guarding nearly empty pools or sitting in their trucks instead of making sure swimmers were safe. Environmental police officers have been paid almost $1.4 million in overtime and state pool and park details during the past 2 years.
These services are needed, but these services need to be performed during normal patrol time.
During Sergeant Chris Folan's patrol, he hauled a boat from Lakeville to Hingham and spent the next few hours just hanging around. Governor Baker's former campaign driver, James McGinn, is the man in charge. McGinn did his best to avoid an interview. Kathy Curran from 5 Investigates. But we caught up with him at the end of a workday. We have one of your officers at home for 6 hours.
Well,
is that acceptable?
We'd like to see that, and we'll take action.
But overall, McGinn says he's okay with his officers working from home when they're writing reports or washing their cruisers. So what would you say is acceptable for hours at home? Would you say 3 hours at home? Are taxpayers really getting their money from your department?
It all depends what type of report they're doing. They have to wash their cruisers at home. We're a very unconventional police force.
It took the department more than 2 months to give us the timesheet records we requested under the state's public records law. We tried talking to the officers we tracked, but the state said they were unavailable. Coming up at 7, why GPS tracking devices were removed from department trucks. Kathy Curran, 5 Investigates.